There are some incredibly powerful new technologies out there, things that not too long ago were really only seen on the battlefield. We're talking AI, drones, super advanced sensors. But now, they're on our streets, being used by local police. The big question is, how do we actually know if these expensive new tools are making us any safer? Okay, let's dive into it.
So, the whole idea we're exploring here is this transfer of tech from the world of defense to our own neighborhoods. Think about it. Capabilities like autonomous navigation and fusing together different streams of intelligence. They're being adapted for public safety right here at home. And the promise? Well, the promise is to make policing faster, way more precise, and ultimately a lot more effective.
And we're not just talking about one or two things. It's a whole suite of tools. You've got stuff like automated license plate readers, ALPRs, that can spot a stolen car in the blink of an eye. You've got drones acting as the first set of eyes on a 911 call. And yeah, even AI that can sift through hours of video to find a lead. Seriously, this isn't sci-fi anymore. It's happening in cities right now.
All right, so here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we're going to look at the big promises these new tools make. Then we'll peel back the curtain and look at the real problems that are hiding just beyond the hype. After that, we'll break down a new blueprint for actually getting this right, put it to the test with some real-world examples, and finally, we'll talk about the ultimate payoff, creating a system that can build both justice and trust.
It is so easy to get caught up in the excitement of shiny new tech. But here's the central challenge this research brings up, and it's a huge one. Just because a piece of technology is powerful, does that automatically mean it's effective? Or that it's even a good idea to begin with? This quote from the research paper, man, it just gets right to the heart of it. Promises, however, are not outcomes. It's such a simple but critical reminder for city leaders and police departments. A vendor can promise you the world, right? But cities have got to have a way to check if these incredibly expensive systems are actually delivering real, measurable results.
And that leads to this fundamental question. You install a new camera system, but did it actually stop a crime from happening? Or did it just push that crime into the next neighborhood over, the one that doesn't have the fancy cameras? The researchers are pretty clear on this. The real goal has to be measuring a reduction in harm, not just shuffling crime around the map. So the framework in this paper boils it down to 4 core questions that any city absolutely has to ask before it spends millions of taxpayer dollars. First step, effectiveness. Does it actually reduce harm or just move it? Second, leverage. Which specific parts of this system are the ones getting results? Third, legal integrity. Is the evidence this thing produces even going to hold up in court? And finally, adoption. How do you scale this stuff up responsibly without creating a mess? These are the big ones.
So how do we get the answers to those questions? Well, the solution proposed here isn't just, buying more tech. It's about having a rigorous scientific blueprint to evaluate these tools, a way to measure what truly matters for keeping a community safe. The best way to think about this whole process is like a digital assembly line for public safety. It kicks off with a sensor, maybe a camera or a license plate reader, but that alert then has to get fused with other data, analyzed by software, verified by a human in a command center, and only then does it get dispatched to an officer in the field. If even one link in that chain breaks, the whole system can fall apart. Okay, so how do you actually measure if it's working? This is where a really crucial concept comes into play, called harm-weighted crime. The idea is actually pretty simple. Instead of just counting every single reported crime, this method forces us to focus on reducing the most serious stuff. The robberies, the assaults, the crimes that genuinely damage a community's sense of safety.
And here's why that's so important. A city could brag that its total crime numbers are down. But hey, what if that's just because shoplifting incidents dropped, while at the same time, violent assaults went way up? That's a misleading picture, right? Focusing on harm-weighted crime makes sure that these powerful tools are being pointed at the problems that matter the most.
All right, so that's the theory. That's the framework. Now let's see how this actually works out in the real world. The paper takes this blueprint and applies it to technologies that are being rolled out in cities as we speak. The research puts this blueprint to the test using 2 really big examples. First, you've got automated license plate readers, or ALPRs. And second, drone as first responder systems, DFR for short. And for each of these, the blueprint lays out a very clear, very testable goal. Let's dig into ALPRs first. These are the cameras that are constantly scanning license plates, looking for stolen cars or maybe vehicles that are linked to a serious crime. So the question becomes, can we scientifically measure what kind of an impact they're really having?
Okay, so this leads to a concrete, testable hypothesis. The researchers predict that in areas with these ALPR cameras, police should be able to recover vehicles involved in high-harm crimes, like robberies or shootings, somewhere between 20 and 40% faster. Now, that is a specific claim you can actually measure against the data.
And they've got a second hypothesis, this time for a different type of crime. For things like serial burglaries, the framework suggests these systems could boost the number of solved cases by 15 to 30%. Why? Simply by helping investigators connect the dots between different crime scenes way, way faster. Again, it's not some vague promise. It's a hard number you can actually test.
But here's the really crucial point. It is not enough for this technology to just be effective. If you want to build public trust, it also has to be legally sound and totally accountable. The data can't just lead to an arrest, it has to be solid enough to actually lead to justice in a courtroom. And that means engineering these systems with the courtroom in mind from day one. The blueprint lays out some critical technical guardrails, things like using Write-1 storage so data can't be tampered with, using cryptographic hashes to prove its integrity. It also demands automated audit trails for every single data query. And, this is huge, it insists that a human being has to verify every single AI-generated alert before any action is taken. That's how you build a system that can stand up to scrutiny. The paper also lays out a really sensible way for police to adopt these tools. Basically, don't just go out and buy 1,000 cameras overnight. Start small. Run a pilot program with a very narrow use case and super clear metrics for success. Prove that it works, then integrate it with your existing systems, and only then scale it up with strong oversight and public reporting. It's a crawl, walk, run approach.
And to make sure everything stays accountable, the framework suggests a public-facing dashboard. Think of it like a report card. It's designed to translate all that complex data into simple, clear answers to the questions that matter. Are we actually reducing serious harm? Are 911 response times getting better? Is this thing even cost-effective? This makes the technology's performance transparent to everybody, both police leaders and the communities they serve.
So, in the end, it all comes down to two things that have to go hand in hand. On one side, you have the goal, which is effectiveness. Does this tech actually reduce serious harm from crime? But on the other side, you have this absolutely essential guardrail, equity. Is this technology being applied fairly in every single community? According to this research, you just can't have one without the other. They're two sides of the same coin.
And that really leaves us with the final and maybe the most critical question of all. As these sensor-to-responder systems get smarter and more powerful, the real challenge isn't just a technical one. It's about building a system and a set of rules to make sure that all this new power makes our communities not just safer, but truly more just for everyone.